way to Cairo and Tunis right after this meeting, or while we are having the meeting, to open the 6th office of the American Islamic Congress in Tunis. She has done extraordinary work in promoting women's educational institute in Cairo, and also women's rights. She has worked with us on a number of workshops that we held in the region in 2005, 2006, and 2007. Zainab is a prolific writer. She has written a number of articles, both scholarly and also op-ed pieces. The meeting today is chaired by Robin Wright, who basically doesn't need an introduction. She's so well known, but she's currently a USIP Wilson Center Distinguished Scholar. She just finished her book, Rock the Casbah, which deals with street vendors, sheikhs, rappers, and women who are shattering the old order. And I must tell you that in 2009, in a conference we had, and subsequently in a publication we had, Robin wrote an article called The New Muslim Feminist and devoted most of the article to someone called Dalia Ziada. And she kept on telling me, you should get her to come and speak at the center. You should get her to come and speak at the center. So finally, 2 years later, thanks to Zainab, we got her to come and speak at the center. Robin, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. I'm really thrilled to have Dalia here. As Holly said, we go back a couple of years, longer actually, and she has often been my eyes and ears in wandering around Cairo. And one of the most wonderful things about watching what was playing out at Liberation Square was getting my nightly email from Dalia saying, this is what's happening, and we're winning. And it was like, her breathtaking reportage was like being there on site. So Dalia is an extraordinary person. She founded the American Islamic Congress office in Egypt in 2006. She has a very poignant story, which I will let you let her tell herself about how she became involved in human rights issues and became one of the leading young activists in Egypt. She launched the landmark Cairo Human Rights Festival, the first of its kind in the Arab world, that showed and encouraged filmmakers to show both to show and make films on human rights. And one of my favorite stories from this film festival involves a film that's only 1 minute long, but if you see it, it'll change your life. She's currently doing by distance her master's degree at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. She was honored last week at the Women in the World Congress, and Newsweek identified her in its first new issue under new management as one of the 150 most remarkable women in the world. So I'm going to turn it over to Dalia and hope that she'll begin with a little bit of her background, and then we'll do a Q&A and then open it up for discussion.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be with you here. I've just came from the Egypt that has become free at last. Thank you. Actually, what we have achieved there, we've never expected it would happen one day. But of course, we still have a lot of challenges ahead. I would like to briefly talk to you about these great days we have gone through, which we witnessed all kinds of emotions anyone can imagine. Briefly, they were the best days of my whole life. I'm 29 years old. I've never realized that I love Egypt so much. I never realized that the people have such a strong power, and they have such a strong voice, and they can really do what they want. But what we've seen in Egypt and before that in Tunisia has proven that it was completely true. On January 25, actually, no one was planning to turn it into a revolution. We were going to the street just to participate in those protests that were planned to give the police a hard day, actually. January 25 is police anniversary. And the police in Egypt has been using torture and bad treatment of people and citizens systematically for so long, and we went there on that day to protest this, particularly after the murder of a young man, his name is Khalid Saeed, in Alexandria, by two policemen who has grabbed him from inside a cyber cafe and beaten him to death merely because he refused to be searched and have his ID taken. This young guy has been the spark of our revolution, actually. On that day, January 25, as I told you, we were expecting it's going just to be another protest, and at the end of the day, we will go back home, and that's it. But on that day, I found in the street not only the same faces of the same young people who usually participate in the protests every time, but just next to me was a woman who seemed, from the way she closes, that she's older in age and she's coming from the poor sector of the society, the less educated, the poorest sector of the society. At that moment, I realized it's going to turn into something really big. It's not anymore the same protests as we do every now and then. So, and it happened. It already turned into something really big. There were much violence in the first 2 weeks from the side of the government, while the people were keeping nonviolent till the very end. It was amazing, actually. Every time I remember those days when everyone was telling everyone, no matter what they do to us, never use violence against them, never be bad, never destroy anything. It was a great momentum, actually. People were loving Egypt, loving their country, knowing that they want to make a change, and at the same time realizing very well that it should happen through a non-violent way. So despite the exaggerated violence used by the police and Mubarak regime and his affiliates, like businessmen affiliated to the NDP, National Democratic Party, and so people were able to continue the struggle. I'm sure you have seen all on these videos of camels and horses running into the people in Tahrir Square. Actually, every time I see them now, they are funny. Actually, it's so funny. It's like watching a cowboy movie. But when we were there inside the square, it were very scary, really. And I think it was scary also to the people who were on the horses running into the square. Because what we knew later, that these people were not coming because they support Mubarak, as they claimed at that time, but they were coming because they were paid by the Mubarak regime, and they needed the money because simply they are not working on these days. Their main income comes from tourism. And during the time of the revolution, there were no tourism, of course. So they needed the money. The NDP people went there and gave them the money and told them, go to the street, kill the people, and we will pay you more. And it was really scary. Also, the time when the people start to throw Molotov on us, the snipers from above, the buildings surrounding Tahrir Square, all these things, like seeing people dying in front of your eyes, and don't know if even you will have a chance to go back your home safe or not. All these feelings were so strong in the very first 2 weeks of the revolution. But as soon as the military came to the streets, everything has changed. It's so strange how actually the people welcomed the military on such a great way. It may be strange for a foreign audience, but I have an interpretation for this. There is a great relationship between the military and the people in Egypt. It's built all over historical developments that have been taking place on both war times and civil times. So when the police came to the streets, when the army was sent to the streets, actually their goal, as I knew later from my resources in the military, was that the plan was to kill people, to end this situation, however it takes. The military men went there to the square. The people chanted for them, shouted "El Sha'b wal Jaysh Eid Wahda," meaning people and the army are one hand. were hugging them, offering flowers to them. These emotions moved the young people inside the army who are having lower ranks actually. And their age is ranging between 20 and 30 years old. So they sympathized with the young people they saw in the streets. They said they are exactly like us. They are our brothers. We just can't kill them. This made a small rebellion inside the army. So the higher rank officers decided that finally they should not be shooting. And I always like to mention this story because we have also to give credit for the great young officers who saved our lives by taking this stance and being so courageous to rebel against their leaders and refuse to shoot the young people in the streets. One of the funny things that one of the very interesting things that most of the people does not know is that those same young officers have Facebook accounts. They are on Facebook. And they interact with other young people, and sometimes they share political opinions, but of course anonymously. They don't mention the real names. They are anonymous there on Facebook. And maybe this virtual relations that was built on Facebook has been translated in that great way on ground, as we've seen on that Friday when the military came to the street. Then after that big day and big moment, which was full of fear and hope at the same time, the situation started to be more brighter. We realized for sure that Mubarak is leaving sooner or later. Every sign and everything is telling us he's just leaving. So we have already started to celebrate. I'm sure you've heard in the news or you have seen people sometimes were going to the square to make their weddings there. It was much fun, people celebrating, Copts making their prayers on Sundays there, Muslims also making the Friday prayers there. It was like a festival, celebrating that the people are now having a will and having a say in their future and how they want to see their country. Then on Thursday, February 10th, they told us Mubarak is going to make a speech. It was actually a big moment because everyone thought that this speech is going to be the last one. He's stepping down. Even we heard analysis from the CIA here saying, yeah, this is the last speech. This is the final thing Mubarak is going to say to the people. So we started to celebrate already as if he's already gone. But of course, as the shocking part was when he appeared on TV, and apparently it was a recorded speech, not a live one. He came on TV and kept saying things that are completely unrelated to what's going on the streets there. So the people didn't even give him a chance to complete his speech. I was there. Actually, we couldn't even hear what he was saying. So. Some of the protesters said we will go to his palace, to his house, no matter what it takes. We will attack the house, and he must be out of the country. But in fact, on their way, I didn't go with them, but on their way there, no one stopped them. No military, no even Al-Haras al-Jumhuri, these are the forces or the Republican guards. These are the forces that are meant to protect Mubarak personally and his family. So they didn't even stop them. At that time, actually, people realized that maybe Mubarak is out of the country already. And that's how his speech was completely unrelated to what's going on. So the next morning, which was Friday, while people were very depressed, very disappointed, he came, they also said again that the vice president is going to make a speech. People never expected now, after this strange speech of Mubarak, that it's going to be the final speech or he's stepping down or so. So they said, okay, let's wait and listen what's he going to say. So just a few minutes before the Friday prayer, Omar Suleiman, the vice president, came out on TV and he said very few words telling the people that Mubarak has finally decided to step down. It was a big moment in Egypt. Everyone was celebrating. People were, you can see tears in their eyes from the extreme joy they have been experiencing, except my mother, of course, she was crying because she didn't want him to go. I don't know how, but my mother was supporting him from the very beginning. But, you know, so, but now she's happy. She's very proud of what happened. So this was the big moment we've lived, and we are actually now gaining much power and realizing how valuable our voice is and how valuable our contribution is. And I don't think the Egyptian people, after winning their dignity back, after knowing how powerful they are, will accept any regression in calling for their rights anymore. In few days, we are having, I think only in 2 days, we are having a referendum on the constitutional amendments. Most of the Egyptians refuse these strange amendments, which, in my opinion, are merely just changing the wording of the articles that has been amended. We want a completely new constitution, and we want the committee that forms this constitution to come from among the activists who made this revolution, along with the legal experts whom we trust most, not the legal experts that the military high council or the current or the former government would dictate to us. So this is the plan, and everyone, actually, I'm going back to Egypt on March 18th, one day or maybe few hours before the referendum on March 19th. So I'm now in contact with my colleagues there, because we want to make a plan B, or an alternative plan in case the military high council did not accept with our no. What are we going to do? So let's hope the best for Egypt, and I'm sure in the near future things will be all right. So thank you.
Wonderful. Let me begin by asking you a couple of questions about the next phase. What specifically is it that you want to ensure is in the Constitution, and what is particularly the young opposition considering doing if there's a disagreement, if the military insists on moving forward based on the amendments that are now on the table?
Okay, let me ask you from the end of the question. The plans, actually, we are still brainstorming about what we should be doing, but the main idea, if the people refused, if the military refused to submit to our no, and form a completely new committee that supports that forms the new constitution, we are planning to go back to the street and protest again. Also, there were talks about using the international pressure, as the whole world is now watching, and it's time now to get international pressure to get our demands met. After actually we have done our fight alone in the past time, now it's time for the international community also to help the people in there. But there is no final plan yet. On the other hand, the first part of the question, what I want to see most in the coming phase is more empowerment for women. Women has been marginalized during the Mubarak time. Only the women who are members of the National Democratic Party or friends of Suzanne Mubarak had access to political position and high leadership positions in the country. But that's not fair. There are a lot of academics, young women, and inspiring people in Egypt who must, and they also have political ambitions, and they must be involved. Unfortunately, it's not only a government problem in Egypt, women's rights, but it is also a mentality problem, a big mentality problem. We have seen on March 8th, women went out to the street to make the 1 million women march. And it was very shocking. And I was on my way here, but unfortunately my colleagues who participated there, they told me it was very shocking to them to see that the same male protesters who were standing shoulder to shoulder with them in the street few weeks ago, facing this together, experiencing all this big momentum together, just went out to the street to tell them, it's not your time now, go back home. We are speaking about democracy, not you. So I don't know how they expect that democracy would be achieved without having women involved in it. Also, we have seen all the decision-making process that's going on now, either in the government or in the constitutional amendments. No woman involved, no single woman involved, and it's just people can't interpret this. And frankly speaking, not everyone is even concerned with having an interpretation for that, or encouraging a woman who's a legal expert maybe, or a judge, to get involved into the committee amending the constitution. So what I really look forward to is more empowerment for women, and not just the same old women who are affiliated with the same former regime, but also the young women who has participated effectively in making this change happen. This is one thing. The other thing is that I hope one day we would have a president who is 35 years old or 40 years old. And unfortunately this cannot happen now because there is a limit. Hopefully a woman, but it's, I think it would need tens of years from now to happen. But we have an age limit in Egypt that no one can run for presidency under 40 years old. No one can run for parliamentary or other positions in the government under 30 or 35 years old, something like that. So I think this is not fair. Most of the population now, more than 60%, are under 30 years old. Most of them has participated in this revolution, and they are completely aware of what they are doing. They are responsible enough, and they should be given the chance to run for political positions in the near future. The last thing I would like to see in Egypt is liberalism. I can see that now we are rushing very fast into democracy, but democracy alone is not enough. We want a stable liberal democracy, and for this to happen we should establish liberalism in Egypt first. This can be easily established through guaranteeing constitutional liberalism. Now I think we are in the process of making this happen. Then we want to have a liberal open market economy, which is a big challenge in Egypt, by the way, who has been under socialist and leftist Nasserist rule for a while, and even during the time after Nasser, they were still keeping almost the same socialist system, with some changes in it, but still it's the general system going on is social, not completely liberal. So I hope that we will be able to establish this open market economy concept in Egypt, so we avoid corruption so easily and have more chances for young businessmen, young entrepreneurs to participate effectively in making the future of their country. So I think, yeah.
Yep. Let me take you to the next step, and then we'll open up to questions. We have parliamentary and presidential elections scheduled this year. I know there's a lot of controversy about which order. Do you have presidential or parliamentary first, as now set up? I believe it's parliamentary in June and presidential in September. Yeah. Can you reflect on, first of all, is that the right formula? What do you think the young people want? And secondly, your prediction on who the candidates might be and who Egypt's next president might be, because there's a lot of talk about people like Amr Moussa, al-Baradei, who knows what role Ayman Noor will play, and so forth.
Okay, so the first part of the question is about
the process of elections.
Great. Actually, there is a general discomfort in Egypt with the fact that we are having elections so fast. Only 6 months is not enough at all. It does not even give time to the civil society actors like organizations and NGOs working in Egypt, and we have experienced this as the American Islamic Congress working in Egypt. It's very hard and very limited time to educate at least the grassroots people about their voting rights. Now we are going through transformation, and we want to be able to make an informed choice. And this might put us at the risk of having some Islamist groups, for example, which people are sympathizing with them emotionally, to take the lead afterwards. And we don't want this to happen. And to avoid this, we just need more time. So we were pressuring, actually, but it was through official means inside the current interim government, to try to push the timeline a bit forward. So at least we will be having 2 years to get prepared, either on both levels, either on educational level in the grassroots and normal citizens, and also on the elite level by preparing candidates, by giving them the chance to introduce their programs to the people, and give the people the chance to select from these programs what is most appropriate with their needs and their ambitions. So here is the challenge now. So even more important than thinking of the order, it's very important to think about the timeline. How the people want the order to be like presidential first or parliamentary first. I think they want the parliamentary elections first, because we are looking forward to be I don't know the word in English. Okay, to be دولة برلمانية. Parliament system, yeah, to be ruled by a parliament system, not ending up again at the end with just one president or one authorization or one authority governing everything again. We are looking forward to openness, to be opened on all levels, politically, economically, all levels, and have equal chances to all people. And for this to happen, we need a strong parliament that really represents the people. And selecting a parliament of 500 plus members can never happen in such a very limited time. We need more time. Then comes after the presidential elections. And here you mentioned the very interesting question about who Egyptians want to be the next president. I remember in 2009 I ran a survey online on my blog, and I was almost going to be arrested for this survey, as the police came to my office already and I had to escape from them. And thanks to Twitter and Facebook, people knew about what's going on and they saved me. But during this time, I made this survey asking Egyptians, and by the way, this was in 2009, no one expected this, asking Egyptians whom they want to be the next president if Mubarak left. So most of the votes at that time went to Ayman Noor, who is the leader of Al Ghad party. It's a liberal party working in Egypt since 2005. And he has competed against Mubarak in the presidential elections of 2005. And he's relatively young in age, so people sympathized very much with him and selected him in my survey. The second name at that time, I remember, was Gamal Mubarak. But it's good that he's not here anymore. So I think now the people, but unfortunately now after about 2 years, Ayman Noor's popularity is getting very low. The same thing is happening with Al-Baradei, who actually, most of the young people in the street feel that they let them down by not participating effectively during the time of the revolution and just showing up for 5 minutes every now and then when the TV stations goes there. So we still are not clear about who is the president we want to have. The other names like Amr Moussa, and actually they are not popular at all. At the end, they are members of the old government. Also, some interesting thing about Amr Moussa here, Amr Moussa popularity came from the fact that he was always supportive to the Palestinian issue and speaking against Israel all the time. But now, people doesn't care about this in Egypt. People just care about what's going on. The Palestinian-Israeli issue has always been used in Egypt by the former government to distract people about their internal problems. But now the fact that the people don't need to be distracted anymore, they are now focusing on this, and accordingly Amr Mousa's popularity has decreased. So one of the most interesting names, but I think he's not qualified enough, is Ahmed Zouel. Dr. Ahmed Zouel is a Nobel laureate in the field of science, physics, chemistry. Yeah, okay. So he's a Nobel laureate, and he's very well respected in Egypt, and almost all the young people in Egypt adore him. So he's one of the strong names that is mentioned in Egypt now, but in my opinion, I think he's not qualified enough, as he's not a politician. We don't need just another technocrat to lead the country. We need a politician, because it's a very critical phase. Maybe in the future we can have a scientist or a scholar as our president, as we had Woodrow Wilson. I think he was the first scholar in presidential positions. Yeah, so I think one day in the future, when we establish a strong, stable, liberal democracy, we will be able to have such a president in our system. But as long as we are still in this transformation period, we need a politician who's very aware of what's going on, who's able to lead the country in this very critical phase, and also who is very loyal to the people, and make sure that he will not be hijacking the situation for his own benefit under any way. And to ensure that, we need, first of all, before the parliamentary elections, before the presidential elections, to establish a strong rule of law. This is what would govern everything in Egypt at the end, and this is what everyone should comply with. Either it is a president from, either this president is liberal, Islamist, or whatever.
Thank you. Let's open it up to questions. Yes. And if you could identify yourself, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ibrahim Hussein. I'm a member of the Alliance of Egyptian Americans. And I would like to thank you. You are a representation of the really young people.
Oh, if you could wait, sorry, wait for the microphone. Sorry.
February 11 was the happiest day in my life. I'm 75 years old.
Wow.
I'm just glad to be here. On Saturday, I will be going to another forum to speak about the question, what can we do as Egyptian Americans for the revolution, for the people of Egypt? Could you help me? We need to know what can we do.
And let's broaden that out and ask what the outside world can do, too, when you talk about international pressure.
Yeah, I've just spoken about the role of the international community, and I think it's very important now to keep the world watching what's going on in Egypt, because there is a general sense that, okay, Mubarak down, so turn this page, we will go to Libya, we will go to Yemen. But actually there is still a lot in Japan now, yeah. There is a lot of things that should be happening in Egypt to make sure that this revolution won't fail. We are still, you know, on not a tough ground yet. We need to get to this tough ground to make sure everything will be stable in the near future. For the American Egyptians, I think the best thing they can do is the continuous support to amplify the voice of the people living there by contacting decision makers here and keeping them following what's going on there. One of the interesting facts, I was yesterday speaking at the National Defense University, and one of the interesting things I knew there is that the American administration here was contacting the military high council in my country regularly during the time of the revolution, urging them not to use violence against people no matter what. So I think now if you can pressure for example, giving incentives to the military high council or the system in Egypt, if they supported liberalism, if they supported liberal leaders and strengthened them, this will help us at least, you know, avoid the risk of having some religious regime in the near future. You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Samia Harris, and just like you, we have been involved with my good friends here day by day and minute by minute with the revolution, helping from here and in Egypt as well. We definitely applaud you and all your generations for what you have done. I just want to get your feedback. We have been fighting the battle about the rushing for the patching of the Constitution. It makes us worried. We've been writing about it. It doesn't sound like the High Council is responding to our request to delay it. What do you think the reason behind them trying to rush from your inside information or your generation's view? What do you think they are trying to push it through for, even though it is not a new constitution like we demanded? Thank you, Dalia.
Thank you. Actually, the information I have is not confirmed, but it's like the gossip that has been said there. Most of the people think this rush is because the military is afraid of having chaos in the country. They want to avoid this scenario of having chaos by rushing everything so quickly and having their job done and then getting their hands out of the situation. But of course, this interpretation doesn't make sense to me, because the military will never get out of the situation. Even afterwards, if it's true they are supporting a civil leader, but this civil leader, if he does not accept to have them having the same powers they are having now, of course they will not let him in. So the fact that they want to finish their work so quickly and go back home, no, it's not true. My personal interpretation to this is that they want to keep the momentum of the people being so, like, you know, سرقهم السكينة. يعني تترجم ازاي دي؟
Push it through.
Yeah.
Under any circumstances.
Exactly. So the people now are very happy, very excited. They maybe not focus more on what the changes are going, so they can play with anything they want to play with. But the people prove to be completely aware of what's going on. There is, as I mentioned earlier, there are campaigns now preparing that we would say no, and if they did not respond to our no, we will be doing bad things to them. So actually the people are aware. The people are not just so happy and so excited, so they are blinded about what's going on.
Are you going to need the ID for voting?
Yeah, national ID, just the national ID, and anyone can go and
have enough number of people who have the ID?
yeah, all the people in Egypt have the national ID. We don't need the electoral ID.
Right.
No, the national ID is the same ID I use, like al-bata'a. It's with everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Woman back here.
Hi, Dalia.
Hey, Vanessa, how are you?
Good. I wanted to ask,
If you could
there's been a
identify
lot
yourself.
of... What?
Identify yourself.
Oh, my name is Vanessa Ortiz. I'm an old friend and colleague of Dalia. And I wanted to ask, there's been a lot of media coverage of the, Gene Sharp and the materials and all of the trainings that activists took kind of preparing and leading up. How much do you think that played a role in the success of the revolution? And also, where does that learning fall short in helping the post-revolution, if at all? Or does it actually help? Mm-hmm. Did that learning about different cases and in history help now with this period of, formation of, democracy?
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning this question, because actually most of the people believe that the revolution has happened just spontaneously. But the fact that actually the people stayed nonviolent till the very end, and now they are very aware of what's going on and almost controlling the situation very well, tells you that these people are very well educated. What happened is that over the past, let's say, 10 or 15 years, there were a lot of groups working to give this knowledge to empower the people in Egypt and all over the Middle East. So it's a work. Actually, what we have seen today is an effort of tens of long years of hard work of these groups that believe in nonviolent action. One of them, of course, is the International Center on Nonviolent Conflict, which has helped offering, in cooperation with our organization, the American Islamic Congress, offering workshops on nonviolent action that were introduced to the young people. It's a series of workshops, about two, I think, in 2007 and 2008, that introduced the young people there to the concept of the nonviolent action for the first time in their lives. During that time also I translated a comic book about Martin Luther King into Arabic. This comic book was published here in 1950s or 1960s in English. It's just a simple language comic book describing how Martin Luther King was able to make the revolution and reflecting on some of the lessons in the nonviolent change he made. I translated it into Arabic, distributed all over the Middle East, and I think it was also helpful in one way or another. I still remember the faces of the people when I was giving to them. For the first time in their lives, they hear about Martin Luther King. They hear about the concept of nonviolent action. I remember we sometimes also had difficulty bringing people to these workshops because they don't understand really what is nonviolent action is. So by having this knowledge, they were empowered. They were given the knowledge they needed. For example, yeah, I think it's a result of a long time work, as I mentioned earlier, and not just a spontaneous act. And that's how it was very nonviolent and very successful till the very end.
Ellen Leibson in the back.
Thank you, Robin. Dalia, it's really great to meet you after monitoring your work online. Some of us are a little bit worried that in the short run, economic conditions in Egypt will get worse before they can get better, and that young people will be adversely affected by this. I wonder if your movement has contact with the business community, whether there's any message to both international business and to Egyptian businesses so that the job situation for young Egyptians will not get worse while Egypt goes through this transition. and whether you believe that some of the people in Tahrir Square were there for economic reasons as well as political reasons. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Great. No, all the people in Tahrir Square now are there for political reasons, mainly. Just the labor and the other members of some trade unions are there for economic reasons, but they are not the majority. The majority, who are the young people, are mainly for political reasons. Speaking about the business community in Egypt, yes, we are very well connected with them, and we are actually now launching so many campaigns to help the economy in Egypt revive again. These campaigns range from encouraging tourism up to finding job opportunities. I've heard yesterday from one of my friends about a page that was created on Facebook linking employers, potential employers and employees. Potential employees and employers, like businessmen who needs to employ people, and the young people who need to be employed. So this way, the work will be continue. Also speaking about the exchange market in Egypt, now there are campaigns to encourage the Egyptians to participate in the exchange market by buying stocks even for 100 Egyptian pound per one. So this way, it will continue its work. Yes, of course, we want the political change, but at the same time, we don't want things to fall apart because of the bad economic situation. However, these all are great efforts. I am not very optimistic about the economic future on the short run, because we are losing a lot of money already. But on the long run, the fact that we are getting rid of the corrupt people who are, like the numbers we've been hearing, like Mubarak having $70 billion in his account in Switzerland, this minister or that minister have about $3 billion also in his account. This tells you that Egypt is not a poor country. We already have a lot of resources, either through tourism, Suez Canal, the US aid. There are a lot of resources. So these were taken by the corrupt regimes in the past. Now, on the long run, of course, not in this coming few months, I'm saying it's gonna make up or going to be reformed again our economy. But I think on the long run, we will be doing good. You're welcome.
Here. Hang on.
My name is Heba Al-Qudsi. I'm from Al-Masri Al-Yom Egyptian newspaper. I'm impressed by your presentation and surprised that you back the liberal constitution and the liberal society in Egypt. I want to ask you, what's your evaluation about this, the strengths of the Muslim Brotherhood? As you mentioned that people have some sympathy with them as they were toughly fought. The previous regime has put them in prison and tortured them and so on. They have some sympathy at the Egyptian people. And this will be a battle about a woman as a president, as it really will be something that most Muslims will reject it as some kind of
course,
religious.
The Muslim Brotherhood in the year 2007, they made a program that said clearly, just an obvious statement that we will not accept a non-Muslim or a woman to have any political leadership position. So, of course, people unfortunately are sympathized with the Muslim Brotherhood. Even their popularity increased after the revolution, because during that day when Mubarak sent the thugs to the square to kill the people, the only group that was able to quickly reorganize themselves and protect the other protesters were the Muslim Brotherhood young people. Actually, that's because they are very well trained in combating and fight situations. They gained more popularity, yes, I agree, and this might threaten the future of Egypt and might easily turn us into another Islamic regime or a theocracy in the region. But actually, the fact we should not be afraid of the Muslim Brotherhood as much as we should be afraid of the Salafis, because at least most of the people know that the Muslim Brotherhood is a political group. And we have run, I would like to share this with you, maybe very interesting to you now. We have run a debate session in Egypt just 1 week before I come here. It's about whether Egyptians want to have a civil or a religious state. It was a very interesting debate. We ran a survey for 1 week online and then a survey inside the session itself. And in the survey, we made people vote for either civil or religious, and 93% of the votes went for civil. So people know that they want a civil leader. But the other threat that we should be really aware of is the rising influence of Salafis, not just the Muslim Brotherhood. Salafis are now everywhere. They are speaking in almost all the mosques. We have seen Muhammad Hassan, who's a very well-known Salafi leader, going to the square, speaking to the people, and the military is even giving him credit to do that. It's strange. Everyone was asking the same question. Why are they doing this? Especially they know very well he's not that open-minded leader, or he was not even popular during the Mubarak time among the regime or the government. So it's a strange step, like to have them very active. Also, they have started to work online on Facebook, and they started, to teach people online about how the true Islam should be, which in their opinion, of course, is the Salafi version of Islam. So, and in fact, they are well funded also from the Salafi governments in the region. So we should be aware of their influence more than we focus more on the Muslim Brotherhood, because in my opinion, the people are already aware of the mission of the Muslim Brotherhood, and they know who they are. But the other Salafi groups, the people does not really know who they are, and the Salafi don't have bad reputation in Egypt, because in fact we have never seen them in any political position before or practicing any political action before. So you can't expect that the people will reject them in any way. So I think this is, speaking about Islamism or religious regime, this is the most important side we should be looking at.
Sorry. Yeah. Holly gets the next question.
Dalia, this might sound as a hypothetical question to you. Supposedly, on Saturday, the elections for the referendum are not manipulated, are not rigged, and it passes with a slim majority. You people, the young people in Tahrir squares, have worked for that. You want free elections, you want free votes. So what are you going to do then, I mean, if you are sure that for the first time in your lifetime in Egypt, you have elections that are really not manipulated. That's number one. Number two, when you were talking about the presidential candidate, you said Baradei is not popular, Amr Musa is the old regime, Ayman Noor is so and so. Is there someone who is, but I mean, no, seriously, you just can't say there is no one, because eventually there is going to be election and there is going to be a president. So this new coalition of the young people who was formed recently, made of all these different parties, I mean, can't they come up with one candidate which is acceptable to your generation?
I'm sure this candidate will come sooner or later, but for the time being, actually, there is no one. There are names, but the people are not agreeing on all of them. And this is democracy anyway, it's good to have so many names and people divided on whom they want and whom they don't want. And at the end, the programs they offer will be the way we judge each of them and select accordingly. You spoke, and thanks for the very interesting question about the role of young people if the freedom has already been achieved. I think, first of all, our role will be to monitor the application of this freedom and making sure that it would reach to everyone in the country, including religious minorities, including women, including the groups that were suppressed in the time before, during the previous regime. And then I think, as Egyptians like always to act, our goal will be more regionally, So we will maybe if we after achieving everything we want, being the country we always have been dreaming of, that free country, democratic country, we will be moving to other countries in the region, trying to help them to get through this the same process and having them empowered and help the people there through the lessons we've learned through our revolution. And on Saturday,
what will happen if they win with a slim majority?
If the
People will still come out and protest?
No, we will continue. No, of course not. if we got it, so that's what we want. So we will continue, of course, pressuring for the other priorities. So the top priority now is this constitution referendum. If it went really well, so we will go to the second priority, third priority, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Zainab Al-Maliki. I'm from International Republican Institute. Hi, Dalia. Good to have you here. Actually, I would just want to comment on the question. You said your long-term goal will be to monitor the application of the freedom. You are not looking to have representation for the younger group who conduct this revolution in the parliament, so you can monitor and have power to change also?
I think the beauty of this revolution is that it came from the people for the people, not from a political group that represents the other people. And we would like to keep it like this, to keep it like a group, actually to make our group the whole Egypt, not just a certain group of young people who are representing the rest. But of course, politically, this might not be working very well. So why not we have some individuals from among those, but I'm against just putting them in the form of a group, but maybe you will be having some individuals from among the people who has participated, who are qualified politically to play some political role in the government or parliament or so, and have them involved. So we will be backing them actually.
Let's do our last round. Let's take 2 questions and let Dalia answer those. Michael Adler and the fellow in the back here.
Hi, Dalia. Thank you for coming. It's a great presentation. You mentioned the problem with women and with prejudice against women and with the difficulty even within the movement of getting that equality for women. What are you going to do to integrate the need for that in your movement, or is it something you're going to put off because it's not practical to do right now?
Thank you for asking this.
Get 2 questions at the same time. And your question, sir?
Okay. Hi, Dalia. Rich Eisendorf, consultant.
Hey, nice to see you again.
Good to see you. My question is about the media. Looking at the state media, Al-Ahram, Egypt TV, obviously the institutions are still in place. It's still, the main broadcast and newspaper mechanisms in the country. Facebook, new media, and other activism, blogging has been so instrumental in the movement and activism. So what now? Do people are still seeing Egypt TV? Are you seeing a change in the broadcast that's going on in the newspapers, in the discussion taking place? Because we talk about an open process through the Constitution and elections, but what's going to happen if the media is still controlled by the same conservative or old guard forces?
Okay, where should I answer first? Okay. So the first question about the role of women and how we should be supporting them. Actually, thank you for asking this question, because I was just discussing this with my friends. We have a great base of young people in Egypt. They are so amazing that are working with us. And usually when we are in such situations, we go and brainstorm with them. So the latest idea I got from them, which is really good, and we will start working on through the American Islamic Congress very soon, is that we are going to make an educational and training programs for women on post levels, on elite level for the women with political ambition, to empower them, help them how to make campaigns, and also offer them some of young affiliates to make these campaigns for them and help them win or at least if they didn't win, so they will be representing or breaking the taboo that women should not be participating, at least they will present the image they wanted to happen. The other level is a campaign about spreading awareness about the role of women and to elect the women. It will happen simply by one-on-one contact between people. We will bring the young people inside each family and each neighborhood, and we will educate them about this, and we will ask them to go back to their neighborhoods and communities all over Egypt, just knock the doors of their neighbors who know them very well, give them flyers about liberalism, women's rights, and why you should be electing the women, and do this in the whole community, in his or her whole community, so he will be more trusted than the message we will be delivering. And the fact that we are having already this beautiful base of young people, I am sure it will be a very effective program. And even if we didn't see the result immediately, on the long run, we will see that women are encouraged to participate more and more effectively. About the role of the social media. As we've seen, the social media has done miracles to people during the revolution, and I think it's gaining more and more credibility now, more than the mainstream media. In Egypt now, you can rarely see people going to famous newspapers like Al-Ahram or Al-Akhbar and checking what they are writing. No, all the time they are checking Twitter, Facebook, seeing what the other friends are writing, because for them they are the most credible, not just what journalists and analysts are writing in the newspapers. So social media will continue to be more effective, but how to control it? Actually, we don't need to control it. The beauty of the internet is just to let it free, let everyone write what they think, and the credibility of each source of information you are having yourself is built over time. For example, if on my blog I continue to publish lies and lies and lies, no one will be following me anymore. They will go to someone else who is more credible, and so on. Even in Twitter, Also, the citizen journalist has no reason not to tell the truth. But the traditional media journalist or traditional media in general has so many reasons not to tell the truth, or even change the truth according to their own interests and benefits. So I'm very excited, for example, by the decision to remove the Ministry of Information in Egypt, which was controlling all media resources. And I think this is a good step on the right track.
I want to please join me in thanking Dalia for a fascinating presentation.